Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Victoria 2 Historical Flavor Mod, where we are playing as Ethiopia. And as you can see, the scramble for Africa has truly begun in earnest. We've seen the British gobble up Kenya and Djibouti. Germany getting Tanzania and Angola, among other places. And we were able to save up enough infamy to get this part of what's left of Sokoto, and we were also lucky enough to get this part of Biafra, which would get us extra coal. So we need all the coal and all the iron we can possibly get. And, yeah. Meanwhile, the King of Belgium has carved himself up a nice new Congo. I can't see this ending poorly at all, can you? Don't answer that question. But in any case, we're going to be taking a mostly passive role in this. The equivalent of the Berlin Conference happened about 4 years ago. I showed that. And we were not really invited to that party. And to be honest, yeah, we've grabbed about all we can. And yeah, avoided being grabbed ourselves. At least for now. But I am here mostly to talk about factories. We now have a couple, so it's about time I got around to explaining how they work, or at least sort of a basic version of how they work. See, as you can see here, we got only 3 factories, and they're not so good. You really don't want to go too crazy with factories when your technology isn't really there so much. Because, you know, the early factories kind of suck when you don't have the literacy for your pops to promote to craftsmen and particularly to clerks. We don't even have any capitalists yet. All 3 of our factories are apparently owned by the crown. So, yeah, I'm not sure where the profits are going even. Actually, I kind of do. I mean, yeah, but in any case, this is just going to be a very basic explanation of how factories work. The Victoria 2 economy is really complex and weird in the ways in which it models reality well in a few respects, but not really well in others. But in any case, I'll tell you about the basics of how things get made. Now, your production, yeah, you basically just look at your numbers here. Your production. Hang on a second. Your production is determined by a number of somewhat complex interlocking factors, which begin with your base output level. Now, this is a level that's sort of preset in terms of the game. It can be increased through certain technologies and discoveries, but most importantly through improvements to infrastructure, like through your railroads. Internal transportation of goods was incredibly important to every country in the era of industrialization. But in terms of facilitating trade and transit of goods, that's not something it models exactly. It does this in terms of a direct bonus to your base output, like just a direct bonus to your RGO output and also to your factory base output. Basically, it represents how much you'll produce. I believe it represents in tons or hundreds of tons. I don't know. If nothing else happens at all, like if you're just at the basic level it's supposed to represent. And so that's where your output of goods starts. It is further improved by most notably throughput. Throughput is determined by it to a certain extent by tech level, but mostly by how many craftsmen you have. So as you can see, we have a bonus because our a certain bonus because this particular cement factory is about 80% full for level 1. Um, and there's also, although this isn't as important as throughput and whether you're getting your necessary input goods, I mean, this is kind of one. I'll get to it later, but this is kind of one flaw in the exactness of Victoria 2's factory model. But output efficiency is determined by tech level, although mostly by how many clerks you have. And it lets you, output efficiency lets you make more with the same number of inputs and same number of number of employees, same factory size. Uh, so yeah, efficiency and boosting productivity is not unimportant. I mean, it lets you make more money, and making more money is always nice. But again, it's not really, the most important thing. You can still have, good and profitable factories with mostly or even just craftsmen. Um, so yeah, that's one flaw with how Victoria 2 does things. And then secondly, there's input, which basically determines how many goods you require to get the desired output, like how much goes in to get what you need to come out for a factory the size as the one you have. Efficiency affects input. Similarly, actually basically the same depending on which techs you have. Um, it allows you to get the to produce the same amount of output with less input. So it ends up having a similar effect. And this this leads directly into the profits and costs. Um, your capitalists, or in this case the state, who I guess owns this factory directly, buys goods from the market, buys its inputs from the market, and then sells its outputs on the market. So yeah, in addition to purchasing the goods, another thing that is taken out of the share of the profit is wages. Workers are divvied up a 50% share of the profits from a factory, with clerks getting more than the craftsmen do, unless the national minimum wage is higher, in which case they're paid that. And the capitalists keep the rest. And yeah, here's another problem with how Victoria 2 handles the economy from a materialist perspective. There's less of a struggle between labor and capital over how profits are distributed, because every factory basically starts out as a kind of lopsided co-op where workers get shares of the profit. Now, the workers still do fight for reforms or revolution for a form of government that will get them the reforms, that will get them higher wages than they would otherwise get in the base. But to a certain extent, they're participating in their own exploitation by taking a share of the profit. So yeah, and the rest of the cost goes to expansion, construction, maintenance, that sort of thing. The goods you need to build the factory or maintain its machinery. Things like, again, coal, iron, machine parts. It's one of the reasons why, particularly in HPM and HFM, having coal, iron, and steel are more important than they are in the base game. So yeah, there are a lot of weird things about Victoria 2's economy that make it, less exact, less perfect than it ought to be from a materialist perspective. But on the other hand, this changing it would almost inherently involve making it more complicated, and this is already a really complicated game. But that's what mods are for. One tragic thing is, there was a mod, the Victoria 2 Realism and Rebalance Project, which aims to fix a couple of problems I've described, as well as a few others. But the project petered out after the second expansion and before the third, or well, before they could release one for the third expansion, and so it is obsolete as of this point. Among other things, VRRP sought to make capital accumulation the main inhibitor of factory growth, and to make profitability more dependent on clerks and output tech than the base game, and which HFM and HFM is. So you can't just have factories that have a whole ton of craftsmen, and they'll just be making, you know, cheap junk that will turn low profit margins. And also there was, and also this sort of led to more. I don't know. I've never played this mod, but I think there was also more battle for control of the product of the workers' labor. But I don't hold me to that. I don't know all that much about VRRP other than what I've read about it. Now HFM and HPM does make some changes for realism, as I've mentioned. One of the more notable ones is emphasizing the importance of steel and heavy industry to supporting the other lighter industries. But in any case, we aren't going to be building too many factories at this point. Once we can make small arms factories, we're going to want to do that so we can be a bit more, so our armies can be a bit more self-sufficient. But yeah, with our low tech and literacy level, the factories we would build are kind of butt right now. Not in terms of in a factory efficiency perspective, but in terms of human capital, being able to have workers which are useful for our purposes. And so we are going to need to boost our research and literacy, and then we're going to need to build more railroads. We're constructing a few in the areas we didn't build them at first, like some in like Addis have basically just finished. The problem, one big problem here is Ethiopia's poor train country. It's highly mountainous, so we're going to need to research more levels of railroad before we can get any of those good RGO and factory output bonuses. So, yeah, that's going to have to be the first thing we research. Although, Russia is our ally right now. One major problem we have is I lost a lot of guys in our war against Turkey. We don't have a very big army, and our army is behind on tech compared to the Western powers. So, we have to ask ourselves, can we count on Russia, particularly given that they appear to be rife with an infestation of radical socialist Republicans, if we can count on them to protect us from any Western attempts to grab land from us. Because although they can't form a protectorate over us, they could probably still take something off of us, and we don't want them to do that. So, we may need to, once we've researched the culture and the research and education texts that we want, we may need to at least put a few research, put at least some research into our military to at least, put up a front of protecting ourselves. So we're going to have to do that. In the meantime, having just conquered this from what remains of the Sokoto Sultanate, I'm going to move my guys back home. And, yeah, see what happens in the meantime. I will cut ahead to the next notable happening. Like for instance, when if the Western powers anytime soon acquire the Dark Continent tech, which allows them to colonize in the center of the African continent. There are 4 techs that are necessary for this. I believe one is colonial negotiations, which you get with which is a research tech that follows from, like an invention that follows from breech-loading rifles. Another one is prophylactic against malaria. That's an important one. And the last, I forget what the third one is, but the last one is simply called the Dark Continent and is an invention that follows from revolution and counter-revolution. So it's the necessary technology to colonize the African interior, which they will be working on. And in the meantime, I will be working on trying to find a way to boost my infrastructure and my RGO production, so I can hopefully build a larger army. We have a crisis in the Solomon Islands over colonization. They're both jockeying for position in over the island. If there's a colonial battle, I believe you need to. It's playground rules plus. I think you need to win by 3. And if it reaches the end of this bar, by the end it triggers a crisis. So yeah, France and Britain may go to war over the Solomon Islands, which would be kind of hilarious. But yeah, I mean, Russia's got problems of its own, and may yet end up having to get dragged into a war over Austria-Hungary's claims over its allies' cores. So, yeah, I don't think Russia wants to be backing France on this, but I mean, what other allies do they have? At least what other allies worth a damn? I mean, not to diss myself too much, but I'm not really an ally worth a damn. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that and let you know what happens with that one. Okay. The Tsar has been overthrown by radical socialist Republicans. We will see. Hopefully, this new government will last, and hopefully their military will be strong enough to help us. I mean, they should be strong enough to fight off those Jacobins. But yeah, it's the Russian Federative Republic now, and not the Russian Empire. But they're still our allies, and we're still in their sphere. They didn't lose us as a sphereling, although they did. I think they did lose some prestige. Yeah, and their flag has switched from the black, white, and gold that I think not even the Tsar used very much. So yeah. In the meantime, it appears those same militant socialists are attacking Finland, are rising up in Finland, and I wonder if they win, they will remain a puppet of the now quite Republican Russian Federation. Okay, and we're back. Interesting development in this crisis. It appears the new Republican government of Russia has reached a kind of rapprochement with the United Kingdom. They are no longer allied with the French. And France also wants to acquire, Britain also wants to acquire French Gambia. So that would be a quite interesting development. Particularly with regards to Middle Europa, because I think the next world, if and when there is a world war, it will emerge over disputes between Russia's allies and the Habsburg monarchy. So that is indeed something very much to keep an eye on. But having looked at the timer, I think this is a fairly good and eventful place to place a cut. In this video, I have explained at least something of how industrialization and factories work in this game. I've shown you some of the colonial situation, and perhaps the beginnings of World War I come 30 years early. We'll have to see where that leads in the next video. Until then, I've been Merukati, you've been you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.